The year is 1860. With the election of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, the Southern states, feeling they no longer had any influence in the government, especially in regards to slavery, seceded, forming the Confederate States of America. The newly elected president felt such action was unconstitutional and treasonous. Determined to preserve the Union, he tried to force the South back into the Union, resulting in the American Civil War. As part of the war effort, the North imposed a blockade against the South. The strategy, proposed by General Winfield Scott, became known as the Anaconda Plan. Desperate to break this northern blockade enforced by traditional wooden ships, Confederate Secretary of the Navy Stephen Mallory turned to the developing technology of ironclad ships. To accomplish this, he hired some of the South's best minds. Without the industry required to build an ironclad, and without any ships to convert to an ironclad, the South resorted to salvaging the hull of the previously scuttled USS Merrimack. Work commenced on July 11, 1861, in Norfolk Navy Yard, Virginia. First, the damaged hull of the salvaged Merrimack was restored. The hull was then sheathed in a protective layer of copper plating with a layer of 1-inch thick iron plating extending down 3 feet from the deck. As work progressed on this new ship, the North soon caught wind of the Southern menace and feared the ship, once completed, would sail upriver and bombard the capital. The North hurriedly assembled an examining board consisting of high-ranking U.S. naval officers to determine the design for their own ironclad. After much debate and controversy, renowned engineer John Erickson persuaded them to choose his design. As the North struggled with the design for her ship, work in the South slowed. On top of the hull, a 24-inch thick roof of solid wood consisting of various layers of rafters and planks was constructed, all bolted and barred together. However, when it came to plating this roof, Virginia found itself lacking the necessary iron to do so. Meanwhile, in the North, work on their ship finally commenced on October 25, 1861, in Greenpoint, New York. The lower hull consisted of a wooden frame covered in a half-inch of armor. On top, an upper hull comprising of 30 inches of solid oak covered in 5 inches of iron plates was then manufactured. Back in the South, Virginia resorted to melting down everything from cannons, tools, and even train rails. Once it gathered the iron it needed, the wooden roof was covered in 4 inches of iron plating. Her bow and stern were also covered with 1 inch of iron plates. Once armored, a ram was mounted to her bow, and she was equipped with 6 9-inch Dahlgren smoothbore cannons and 4 7-inch Brooke rifle cannons. As work was straggling in the South, things progressed like clockwork in the North. Her deck was covered by deck beams with 1 inch of iron plates laid on top. Central to the ship's design was a rotating turret armed with 2 11-inch Dahlgren smoothbore cannons and protected by 8 inches of iron plates. Christened the USS Monitor, she was commissioned 2 weeks before her southern counterpart on February 25, 1862, at a cost of $275,000. In the South, final touches on the ship were completed. Rechristened the CSS Virginia, named after the state that gave so much to make her, she was completed after 8 months of work on March 7, 1862, at the cost of $170,000. The Monitor was smaller, but better armored than the Virginia, making it a harder target. While the Virginia had far more guns, the Monitor's ammunition was deadlier. Despite the Monitor possessing superior engines, both ships had roughly the same max speed of 6 knots, but the Monitor had much more maneuverability. Commanding the Virginia was Franklin Buchanan, who oversaw a crew of 320 men from the Army and Navy, along with volunteers from all over the Confederacy. The Monitor was commanded by John L. Warden, who led a crew of 63 men consisting of 3-year volunteers that Warden personally chose from other ships. On March 6, 1862, the USS Monitor steamed towards the strategically important coastal region of Hampton Roads, Virginia, to protect the Union fleet stationed there. 2 days later, on March 8th, the CSS Virginia, unaware of the Monitor's movement, steamed to Hampton Roads, aimed at destroying the same fleet in an attempt to break the Union blockade. These two ships, of untested designs and questionable seaworthiness, would both arrive at Hampton Roads mere hours apart in what would become the most iconic naval battle of the 19th century.
To port! Bring the guns to bear! Fire! Ready the forward cannons! Fire! Keep us steady, boys. For land. For the Union!